Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call to order the Wickliffe City Council meeting of March 13th, 2023. Sandy, please call the roll.
Bell.
Here.
Gerhardstein.
Here.
Jaworski.
Here.
Kosky.
Excuse.
Soloto. Here. Thielman.
Here.
Levon. Sorry.
Here. Approval of council minutes.
I'll make a motion we approve the council minutes.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gerhardstein.
Oh,
second-
wait. Can I second? Yeah, I can second.
Oh,
Yeah.
hold on one second. Could we take those back? We gotta, can you take the motions back real
I
quick?
will rescind my motion on,
Just in a second.
I rescind my.
I'll entertain a motion to allow Councilwoman Soloto to abstain from voting on the meeting minutes of February 27th. I'll entertain a motion.
Me too.
And you both were, and Councilman Thielman.
So moved.
I'll make a motion.
No, so,
Oh, we
second,
already did.
second.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Jaworski, second by Councilman Gerhardstein, to allow Councilwoman Soloto and Councilman Thielman to abstain from voting on the council meeting minutes of February 27th, 2023. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bell.
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Levon.
Yes.
Soloto. Yes. Thielman.
Yes.
I'll make a motion we approve the council minutes for February 27th, 2023.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gerhardstein, second by Councilman Bala, that the council meeting minutes of February 27th, 2023 be approved as presented. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bell.
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Levon.
Yes.
Soloto. Abstain. Thielman.
Abstain.
There we go. Reports and communications from the Mayor, Safety Director.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone. So the CDT, City Development Team, is proving to be a great tool. It's helping to facilitate economic development in Wickliffe, and I'm no longer in the dark about all the opportunities here. I can now focus on these things. Thank you for the support of the new Circle K. We're working out the details of the CRA for this incoming business. I attended the opening of a new business in Wickliffe on March 3rd, along with Councilman Gerhardstein. We will also be welcoming Sam's Southern Eatery, who is opening tomorrow at the old El Chorito restaurant. And we are glad to welcome new businesses into our great city. Also, I attended the Lake County Development Council Legislative Breakfast on Friday morning. Commissioners Hamercheck, Plesnick, Regovich, and Representatives Troy and Serino were there. One of the issues discussed was the Route 2 freeway lights and litter pickup. So they have been waiting for parts for this system for over a year. As soon as it comes in, they're going to install it. I know that's one of the biggest issues are those freeway lights. They've been out and getting the part, and they're going to do a better job as far as the litter pickup on the freeway exits and entrances and all that stuff. And that's all I have.
Any questions or comments for the Mayor? Thank you, Mayor. Reports and communications from the Director of Law.
I don't have anything, excuse me, to add to the written report on the prosecutions that I submitted this month. However, I would be open to answering any questions on that anybody might have.
Any questions or comments for the Law Director? Councilman Gerhardstein.
I would like to make a comment. People who do not read this report do not understand how much the law director's office, the prosecutor, and the police department work, because this is pretty, for January, this is just the month of January. This report right here, Chief, it should look like, I mean, that's a police report along with it, is many cases you guys are handling, so it's really hard to believe that this much stuff's going on in the city.
And one thing I'll say, just to clarify what's in the report too, obviously the total number of charges in there, obviously a pretty high number, doesn't necessarily mean if it was going through the prosecutor's office that those arrests happened in January. So this would be everything that did happen with those cases in January though. So if there was arraignments, pre-trials, preliminary hearings, anything like that.
Councilwoman Koski was the one, I don't know what her thoughts are on the, the report, but when you read the report, it's really amazing how much you guys have to deal with on a month-to-month basis in the city.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot, and I think everybody does a good job on it. And actually, this came from we had like a 30-page report that we distilled down into this page. And so I should be able to have February's to you next month. We have a person in our office who spends a lot of time putting these together. But I should have February's at next meeting, and then come April, I should have March's, and then we'll be caught up just doing the previous month every month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the law director? Councilman Jaworski.
I'm just curious, I mean, with all these, and I didn't realize there was this many cases appearing, in 1 month's time. How many, what's the conviction rate on?
That I don't know off the top of my head. Certainly something I could talk to Sarah about. Again, in keeping in mind some of these cases, a few of them that had arraignments in January probably happened right around that time. A few other things where if you're talking about a pretrial hearing or a preliminary hearing or a motion for continuance, it could have been something that happened several months ago. But it's still things that we have to touch. So I can, as we refine this and we talk about it more and we have more meetings and those kind of things, we can see what exactly you guys are looking for and try to get some ideas on that. And certainly Sarah's the one handling these, so I'll make sure she's either available or has another report. If you guys have specific questions, I can make sure that we have answers for you guys. Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the law director? Thank you, Chairman. Communications from the council president. I have none. Amendments or additions to the agenda? Mayor?
I would like to add storefront renovation guidelines and one topic, and then new business B, vacant building / business violations.
Vacant building /
Vacant business violations.
violations. Thank you. Okay, we will add storefront renovation guidelines to the new business A and vacant building / business violations to new business B. Any further amendment? Councilman Jaworski.
I'd like to add the burying of all utility lines in new developments as item C.
That's
Okay, burying of all utility lines in all new developments will be new business C. Councilman Bella.
Sidewalk extensions on Rockefeller?
You'll add sidewalk extensions on Rockefeller to new business D. Any other amendments or additions to the agenda? Now we'll move on to administrators, police chief Ice.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know this is the meeting where we pass the budget, or don't pass a budget, and Councilman Garhartson sent me very relevant inquiry about the flock cameras. There, at some point in time, there was some confusion, maybe I didn't clarify it, about purchasing the cameras or leasing them. So, from Flock, you cannot buy the cameras. The cameras are not for sale. They're leased. Every place that has Flock cameras, they're leased. But the value is not in the camera. The value is in the service that it provides. So Flock owns the software, and the camera just gives us access to the software. So you might ask yourself, how do they get the license plates numbers? Well, every day they have to send a check down to the Ohio State Highway Patrol through the Law Enforcement Automated Data System. They pay for that. Flock pays a fee to get those inquiries. Our Flock system is monitored 24 hours a day. It's up in dispatch 24 hours a day. Every police officer has access to the Flock cameras inside their car. So, and there's three different main ways that we use the system. So there's self-initiated field activity where the officer in the car accesses a Flock camera looking for a license plate or color of a vehicle, kind of vehicle, for some reason. So in January, that occurred 458 times. There's also a system where we can look for stolen cars, stolen license plates, supervised release of people that are on probation and parole violations, protection orders, violent persons, missing persons, which we actually found one a couple of days ago. It was a suicidal male. We were able to hook him back up with his family, and that was only possible by the flock camera catching him. So I'm guessing, I didn't look into it too far, but there's a hot list. If somebody's missing, or if we're looking for, say, like domestic violence or catalytic converter theft, we can put that license plate on the hot list, and that hot list goes all the way to the departments that have these cameras, and then when it pops up wherever it's at, we get notified of that. I think I said violent persons, missing persons, immigration violations. We also have access to searches to Canada, gang affiliation, terrorism suspects, warrants, sex offenders, and Amber Alert. So what we did was we decided to, I spoke to Lieutenant McCaffrey on the 9th, discussing these issues. We monitor all the cameras in Lake County. And I think a little bit maybe like, Euclid has a different system. They have LPRs, but they're a different system. So just on that day, on the 9th, for half a day, we had 70 hits for those things I just read through. And then, so for example, if we can make a request, let's say we have a homicide, and we know the person went to Chicago. We can call Chicago PD and put this on our hot list, and if that car shows up anyplace, they'll investigate it for us or hold that person. So I'm going to guesstimate that we make between 6,000 and 9,000 self-initiated inquiries a year, and between 15 and 20,000 hits, including the ones that I just described. So that's how the system works. The cameras, we do not own those. I'd like to get more. I didn't ask for more because we've only had this system for not even a year yet. And then we had some problems with some installation. But for example, Mentor has 29 cameras, so they pay over 70 grand a year for that service. Willoughby has 15 cameras. Willoughby Hills has more than us. This tool has revolutionized the way we do police work. It's one of the most important tools that we have. And just to dovetail off that so you have a little bit better understanding, in the dispatcher's budget, you'll see something that says Communications Information Services. There's like $65,950 in there. That money gets spent for things like the CAD system that we have. We purchased it many, many years ago. We pay a service that's $22,000 a year. We also pay leads, where we have access to all the criminal information that dovetails in the National Crime Information Center for warrants. We can search through that system any kind of criminal history, any state in the country. It's $600 a month or $7,200 a year. The county radio system, we have to pay to be on. We have to pay a backbone fee. That's $16,000 a year. And there's a hodgepodge of other fees that go into that. So this is just another technology-driven expense that we're going to have going forward. And it is a very important asset, and I would recommend at some point in time purchasing more cameras. That's all I have to say.
Real quick, so can you remind us how long the length of the lease is on these flock cameras?
2 years.
Just 2-year leases, okay. And I think that you answered, I can't speak for Councilman Garrett's time, but I think you answered it by justification. That's all he was looking for, was that kind of explanation you provided is a justification for the cameras. And I think that's
No, I understand that, but you guys don't know how often we use it, so that's why
Right. Yeah, it's extensive, it sounds like that, sure.
I really appreciated that explanation. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or comments for the police chief? Councilman Garrettstein.
Chief, that's exactly what we were looking. When people ask what flock does, there's a lot of people here, we didn't know I said in the email, I didn't personally know they were leased. That's a great explanation, and there's no, nobody was, I wasn't saying we're gonna take flock away.
No.
The explanation you just gave is exactly what we were looking for. So I appreciate you going through the effort of getting that, so thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any further questions or comments for the police chief? Councilman Jaworski.
Chief, when an officer leaves the department and goes elsewhere, is it customary that they would be taking their bulletproof vests with them, or is it something that we keep here because it's reused again?
It's not reused again. It's a contractual issue. The vests are cut and made for that individual officer. Also, the problem is, you keep using somebody else, is that when you wear a vest, they're very hot in the summertime and you sweat in them. The reason they have a life expectancy of 5 years is because of how they, when you're sitting in the car, how they flex and it wears out the material at the bottom of the vest, and they can't guarantee that the material is going to protect you after 5 years. So they selected that time frame. So giving a vest to somebody else is like, having somebody else like wear your socks or something, I guess. So it's an individual purchase to the officer, and then when they leave, they can take it with them. Now, we do have a provision in the contract that if a new employee, if you leave within 5 years, you have to reimburse us a prorated amount for that. But the officers, full-time officers, after we purchase the vest for them, it's like their clothing allowance. They own it after that.
So it's theirs, then they can do what they want with it.
I'm not sure what else they would do with it, but yeah.
Well, no, but that's what I was getting at then. Councilman Gahardstein had sent an email out, it was on February 16th, that we actually purchased a vest from another city from one of our officers who came to Wickliffe. I mean, what keeps, I guess, is it our contract that says that we would have to let the officers just go without their contract without making another entity such as Lake County, reimbursing us?
Well, if you want to
for
change that, I think you need to get, the next contract is up, you could put some kind of provision in there. The vest that you're talking about was cut for a female, and her body is cut differently. That vest could not be used unless they hire a female with the same kind of body shape that she has. We were going to buy her one anyhow, so we were able to purchase that at a reduced cost.
What I'm just getting at, though, is if other cities have language where they mandate, okay, if you're going elsewhere to another city, you have to, we'll sell it to them or something to that effect. If you understand what I'm getting at, where the vest follows you, so now entity B would buy it from entity A.
Well, I guess you could try to get something like that in the contract. I think the union would not be amenable to that. It's no different than like their clothing allowance. Your clothing allowance, you get that every year by contract. If somebody leaves, before the end of the year, you can't say, hey, I want half your clothing allowance back. That's simply not how it works.
The law director?
Yeah, I was just going to say a couple things about that. One, it's pretty typical to have contracts that we're required to purchase those vests. Some contracts say what the amount is, those kind of things. The one thing we could possibly put in some language, it sounds like there may already be some, about people paying us back if they leave within a certain amount of time. I've done some language like that it prorates if you're here for a certain period of time. Not sure if I've done it with vests, but could be some. The one thing we can't do is bind another entity to our contracts. So we couldn't force another entity to buy our vests if somebody left here. That just wouldn't be, unless we had an agreement with that other entity. That would be the only way to do it. And I think in the case where he bought the vest from Brook Park, I think it was, that was just a cost savings matter. They would have had to buy it anyway, so that was probably a pretty new one.
Yeah, she only been there for a year, and she was actually off on injury leave for a while, so the vest was probably, like 8 or 10 months old.
Yeah, and that's pretty typical. Most contracts have you got to buy a vest. They last for 5 years. Some will have the cost that will pay for it, but usually it's just we have to purchase them every 5 years. And raincoats are sometimes included in that too, because they're often cut for whoever they're made for.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the explanation, Chief.
Any further questions or comments for the police chief? Thank you, Chief Ice. Fire Chief Powers.
Thank you, Council President. We've had a really busy 2 weeks. A lot of high acuity patients that were taken to the hospital, and we're taking some patients multiple times in the last couple of weeks. Just some really sick people that really need complex EMS. Our guys are doing good with it. We're still having problems with backup times in the hospital. 2 hours, an hour and a half, just doesn't seem to be as sensational as it used to be a year ago, which really hampers us. And then finally, we're a little frustrated, at least I'm frustrated. We just put 6 part-time candidates through our process, if you would. And I was really feeling good that we're going to up staff a little bit or get to the required number that we'd like to have. And out of those 6 candidates, we lost 1 on a background, 1 on a medical, two decided that medic class was too overwhelming and chose not to proceed with the process. And then one gentleman who's a full-time accountant was looking to go in a different direction with EMS and fire, married and already working one part-time job, said he couldn't do it. He couldn't just take another part-time job. So finally we're down to one. And I just found out yesterday that actually he's going to be working in Wickliffe also, so we'll be sharing that person. And we have no other candidates in the queue, if you would, right now. So we're doing our best to recruit and get people, but when we're faced against some of these deficits, it's very difficult. That's all I have, Council President.
Any questions or comments for the fire chief? Councilman Bella.
Chief, when you recruit, when you go to school, I mean, do you go to Lakeland, work in the county, or where do you like actually recruit? It's like twice a year because
Oh, no.
school or
No.
anybody?
We go quarterly. Lakeland, Auburn, Auburn Fire, Auburn EMS, Lakeland EMS, Tri-C. We hit just about everything we can, and word of mouth too. We you know, our younger guys are looking for more help, and they know the younger kids are coming in. And if you're not aware, the city schools here have an EMT program, which we were very hopeful. We helped set up, and we're going to continue to support. But they're down to 4 students in that class. I think they started out with 12. I'm not sure on that, but I know they're down to 4. So it's really disheartening that we can't get enough people interested in the fire service, because it is such a great job. Yes?
Councilwoman Saloto.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, what is their reasoning? I mean, I would think a high school kid would be really excited about the opportunity. I mean, are they afraid of it, or they just, is it too hard of a program for them?
I don't think it would be too hard, but you have to apply yourself.
Yeah.
I would believe you have to apply yourself to everything in high school to do well. But there was a state accreditation test at the end. I don't know, UH has partnered with the schools with that. We helped them come together with that. We're just disappointed, and we're supporting that class a little bit with some on-duty help and assistance. We allow those kids to ride in our squads to get that practical experience also.
Any other questions or comments for the fire chief? Thank you, Chief Powers. Finance Director Doles.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to point out in my monthly report that the general fund carryover at the end of February was $7.2 million. But other than that, I have nothing to report.
Any questions or comments for the Finance Director? Thank you, Ms. Doles. Engineer for me, Kit.
Thank you, Council President. One thing to add to my written report, applications were due today to Congressman Joyce's office for funding for improvement projects, federally aided improvement projects, sort of like what we received the $800,000 for Ridge Road last year. And so I talked with the mayor, and I talked with the city engineers from Wickliffe and Willoughby, and we decided to put a package together, a request together, to fund the paving for US Route 20, Euclid Avenue, from the Wickliffe line to Som Center Road, which comes out to about $6.6 million. So we asked for $4.6 million from the federal government, with hopes that the remainder we can maybe get funding from other sources. So, fingers crossed. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for the city engineer? Thank you, Pete. Service Director Strouser.
Thank you, Council President. I just had a couple things. One, this first thing, it doesn't require any action by council, but I just wanted to make them aware. We've had, the last couple of weeks, we had a few major issues with the Opticom systems on the streetlights, which is the lights that change the traffic signals for the police cars and the squads when they go through. They're not working mainly at 305 in Lakeland. So there was a few issues. We had to order some new controllers. It ended up being $11,000. I can cover that in the budget for right now, but I mean, that was half of my traffic repair budget for the year. I just wanted to kind of put that out there that, you know, it put a big dent in it, that's all, and I just wanted to mention that. And then also, last week I had a meeting, a pretty good productive meeting with the head honchos from Kimball. They gave me a pretty good update that they're actually overstaffed right now. They had a few new vehicles come in. They're pretty confident they're gonna have a vast improvement over last summer. Yard waste started back up on March 1st, and they were very eager to spread the good news. So hopefully, I'm hoping they keep up and keep their employees, and we have a good year with them. And that's all I have.
Councilman Gerhardstein.
I have two questions, Ron. One about how many people you're hiring. I know you lost your assistant director and one employee. Are you
Correct.
currently looking to fill both those spots?
Yes, I'm mainly actually have a second round of interviews this week for the one employee that went on the disability. And then we are going to fill the assistant director's position. It's just I'm waiting until we get this other guy. Then I'm going to advertise within, and if we don't find a qualified candidate, then we're going to start looking outside. So that's why. But yes, we are going to replace both positions. If I can fill it from within, then we'll have we'll be hiring 2 laborers.
And my second question is, on your signals for the safety vehicle, does the safety forces contribute into those lights, or does that strictly have to come out of your budget?
Right now, I mean, just because this was a safety issue, I didn't want to even mess around with it. But yeah, technically, it's not part of the traffic system. But we had right now, I'm not too worried about who's going to pay for it. But I just had to get it fixed right now. But Debbie and I talked, and we said, well, we'll just take it out of traffic for now. But there probably could be another line item. Maybe it could come from. I don't know.
That's why I'm asking if you've already gone through most of your budget for traffic. And I was just wondering if some of the burden could come out of your budget, because your budget out of the 3 departments is obviously the smallest budget that we have from the 3, that maybe the other ones could help in that particular line.
Yeah, I can speak about that. Maybe we can come up with something to ease that a little bit, for sure.
Hey, Ron, with the cost of controllers being as high as they are, is there any kind of warranty on there? Is there a life expectancy?
So there is. So actually, the 2 on Lakeland and 305, those were two of the 3 that we had to replace. They gave us a trade-in credit. They were out of warranty. The warranty I think they were 7 years old, and the warranty was 5 years. So they did give us a substantial trade-in credit. I think they were normally $3,900 a piece. I'm not pulling off the top of my head, but $3,900 a piece. I think they gave it to them for $2,700. So there were those 2. The other one I had to buy outright. So.
Councilman Jaworski?
To take that a step further, Ron, were all of those units bought at once for the entire city, or is it just kind of piecemeal, like a couple here, and we just replace as needed?
No, actually, I don't know if there was an issue. They really don't know why there was 2 of them went bad at 305 in Lakeland. They don't know if it was a lightning strike or what happened there, because those were some of our newest ones. So they really couldn't tell us, and unfortunately, that was the biggest issue there. Because, that intersection's messed up with being on the north side of the freeway and everything else. That's one of our most complicated intersections we have, so, I don't know. So, but like I said, with being a safety issue, I couldn't mess around. I just told them to go ahead and order them, So.
You may not know the answer to this, but for the most part, would you say that those units are as old as the actual traffic controller boxes that we have for the lights themselves, or?
I can tell you the last time we placed an Opcom was probably at least 4 years ago, so most of them are probably original with the units, yes. Most of them probably are. 97, 98.
Yeah.
So, that was when we did all the toll traffic signal upgrades, We've been slowly doing the ped head, the pedestrian crossings and stuff, we've been slowly upgrading them. But our traffic signal system is definitely due for an upgrade. We've actually asked for funding for it already and gotten turned down, but we're going to keep plugging away at it. It needs to be upgraded throughout the whole city for sure.
Councilman Gerhardstein.
This is for both you and Pete. The grant that we got from NOPAC for light efficiency, can any of that money be used in traffic lights?
I think you can replace the signal, the light in the signal to LEDs, because that's a energy-saving device, and something like that, I believe we've done that in the past, for at least our green lights on the avenue and on Ridge Road.
It was just a thought to help Ron's budget as we go through the year, if any of that money could be used to help with his traffic
We
lights.
can look into it further, be sure.
Mayor?
I could call NOPEC tomorrow, and it's a good question to ask if that would cover that.
Any other questions or comments for the service director? Thank you, Ron. Building Commissioner Sack.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I came across my desk yesterday, or Friday, a couple new builds that's going to go on Lloyd Road, new homes on Lloyd Road. There was 2 lots. Gore Builders bought them, and he's going to build two more houses there. And that's all I have.
Any questions or comments for the Building Commissioner? Councilman Garrettstein.
Ray, I have 2 questions for you. On your report, you have a permit for industrial addition and business addition. Do you know who, can you tell us who those were for the permits? Top right? Business, industrial addition?
Yeah.
If not, if you could just let us know. And how is the vacant building fee collection coming for this year?
We still have one that we're still working on, but we did get one in last week, $3,200 for, it was the old car wash. We got that finally, from, we get them out like in December. So we're constantly chasing people for the money.
All right, and then whenever you get that information, I just would like to know where those are at. Thanks, Ray.
Any further questions or comments for the Building Commissioner? Thank you, Ray. Recreation Director, stop.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Just one comment. I know that it's snowing out right now, but the rec department's thinking about summer. We have begun our lifeguard recruitment process, so we have sent out our application and come be a lifeguard at Wickliffe notice to the area high schools, the University High School, Riverside, Menor, Cornerstone, Kirtland, North, South. So Lake Catholics are in the process of doing that right now, and hopefully we'll have a good return on that like we did last year. That's what I'm banking on. And that's it.
Any questions or comments for the Recreation Director? Thank you, Jim. I'll now open the floor for audience participation. If anyone would like to address Wickliffe City Council, please stand and state your name and address for the clerk's record. She has a microphone, as this meeting is being recorded, so if you can, you want to use that, please. Each person will have a 5-minute max amount of time. Would anyone like to address Wickliffe City Council? Mr. Liss?
Jim List, 29717 Arthur Avenue. All right, questions. Well, where on Lloyd Road are the 2 new houses going up? Or did you buy the lot? Just
Because we're going to be on the west side of Lloyd Road. There was 2 houses. There's a couple houses that have double lots, and that's the one. He bought that one. There's 2. They're about 10 houses apart.
What street are they close to?
It would be Weber, almost across from Weber there, and then about 10 houses down from there.
Just wondered. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to address Wickliffe City Council? Would anybody else like to address Wickliffe City Council?
Not today.
Thank you. If not, I'll mark audience participation closed. Committee reports. The Finance Committee met on March 6th at 7 p.m. to discuss sewer rates, sewer fund, Circle K tax abatement, cemetery improvements, and fireworks. Present, Gerritstein, Jaworski, Kosky, Levon, Thielman. Excused, Saloto, and Bala. Also present, Engineer Famika, Service Director Strouser, Finance Director Doles, Fire Chief Powers. Finance Director Doles recommended to the committee that we raise the Euclid processing rate portion of the sewer bills in our city for both businesses and residents to cover the 25% increase that the Euclid sewer plant has placed on our city. She believes that Euclid is not done raising their rates. That portion would go from $4.78 per 100 cubic feet to $5.34 per 100 cubic feet. Engineer Formica informed the committee that Willoughby Hills pays a small fee to Wickliffe for their sewer rates. He recommends that we do not increase it at this time, but we should review it in the near future. The committee had discussions on the impact this would have on both businesses and residents, as it would be approximately a 12% increase on their water bills. Ultimately, without this increase, it would be almost a $600,000 hit on the city's budget if we do not pass along this increase. The committee had no objections to the finance director's recommendation and recommends we authorize her to create legislation to implement this increase effective April 1st, 2023. This item is reported out of committee. The finance director reminded the committee that in years past we had initiated a $250,000 advancement of money into the sewer fund. She recommends we reclassify the transfers into a subsidy transfer, as we won't have enough healthy balance to pay back the general fund in the near future. This move does not affect the budget and is only for auditing purposes and the county's records. The committee had no objections to reclassifying the advancement into a subsidy transfer. This item is reported out of committee. The future owner of Circle K is looking for a tax abatement to help with the improvement they will be doing on their property. He originally asked for a 75% abatement over 15 years. Wahid Chada of 9449 Van Court, Twinsburg, Ohio, the owner, spoke to the committee. He expressed how the current economy has a huge impact on the project. He expects a $2.5 million construction cost. The current land cost is $375,000, and the total project is around 300,000 square feet. He needs an abatement to compete with the competitors in the area. Mayor Sekis had notified the committee that he recommends a 25% abatement over 8 years. Councilman Jaworski asked what the potential number of employees and payroll would be and was told 12 to 15 employees and a $300,000 to $400,000 payroll. Councilman Gerhardstein recommended a 25% abatement over 10 years. Councilman Thielman would be willing to provide a 30% abatement for 15 years. Councilman Jaworski is not in favor of any abatement, as he does not believe the payroll is enough to justify a tax abatement. Gerhardstein stated that the payroll may not be enough, but they're investing in the city and tearing down an old building and creating an improved lot. Councilwoman Koski agreed with Gerhardstein's recommendation. Fire Chief Power stated that the legislation for the abatement will need to be incentive-based, and Councilman Levon advised that all abatements with the city need to meet specific criteria for the business to be rewarded the abatement. With Jaworski objecting, the rest of the committee recommends that council authorize the law director to create legislation for a 25% abatement over 10 years for the future Circle K property. This item is reported out of committee. Formica notified the committee that the estimated cost for the new driveway and parking lot for the Wickliffe Cemetery would be between $125,000 and $130,000. He is also looking into community development block grants, also known as CDBG grants, for this project. Councilman Jaworski asked if the project could be piggybacked with another road improvement project to potentially save money, and was advised that we can do that. Service Director Strauser advised that the service department could probably do about 10 to 20% of the work to save costs as well. The money for this project is already allotted in the proposed 2023 budget. This item is reported out of committee. The last discussion on the topic of the night was bringing fireworks back to Colby Park. The police department, fire department, and service department all provided estimates of what a show would cost. The police cost would be between $2,800 and $3,500 for overtime for officers, auxiliary officers, and dispatch. The fire cost would be around $1,000 in overtime for an on-site inspector and EMS personnel. The service cost would be approximately $4,700 for prep and cleanup. The total cost, including estimates for the fireworks themselves, would be between $30,000 and $40,000. Councilman Gerhardstein stated that based on costs, he would like for the city to continue to be a part of the fireworks show at Captain Stadium in Eastlake and not bring the show back to Colby Park. Councilman Jaworski, Koski, Levon, and Thielman all agreed with Gerhardstein. The committee recommends to the mayor that he join Eastlake in having the fireworks show at Captain Stadium. This item is reported out of committee. Meeting adjourned at 7:56 p.m. Respectfully submitted. I will make a motion to authorize the finance director to create legislation to implement a 25% increase on the Euclid portion of the sewer bill effective April 1st, 2023.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Levon, second by Councilman Gerhardstein to authorize the finance director to create legislation to implement a 25% increase on the Euclid portion of the sewer bill effective April 1st, 2023. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Ballard.
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
No.
Levon.
Yes.
Saloto.
Yes.
Dillman.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to authorize the law director to create legislation for a 25% tax abatement over 10 years for the future Circle K property.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Levon, second by Councilman Gerhardstein to authorize the law director to create legislation for a 25% tax abatement over 10 years for the future Circle K property. Discussion? Councilman Gerhardstein.
There will be stipulations in that, correct, that if he doesn't meet his requirements, the abatement, right? I'm just making sure
Yes.
that's on the record.
That is how all of them work. Every abatement we ever had, they have to have employee numbers, they have to meet certain criteria every single year of that abatement, or they do not get that. Any further discussion? Councilman Jaworski.
I just want to reiterate what I said at the meeting, and I just don't think for a project that is going to be creating mostly minimum wage jobs that we should be giving any type of tax incentives to it. If it was a company coming in and bringing some actual wages, that's a different story.
Understood. I just think any investment in the city that doesn't cost the city any money, that's going to bring a better looking lot or better looking buildings and improvement. We can, if we can help out, we should help out. And we're not taking any money off the table, we're just not increasing the money us schools or us could get in a timely manner. So short term, we don't take the money, but long term, it's a future investment in the city. Councilman Gerhardstein.
I'd like to make sure what we're talking about, the city gets 11% of property tax for that. So we are talking 25% of 11% of what we get over there. I think the value of having a new building outweighs that cost.
Councilman Bala?
Also, as you talk about minimum wage ain't what it used to be. You know, after COVID, you know, it seems like minimum wage is $15 now, not like $10. So that actually increases the taxes on that too.
Councilwoman Sloto?
I agree, and if we're gonna develop the city and, you know, bring in new businesses and new buildings, we've got to offer something. And I think a 25% tax abatement over 10 years is, again, as you said, not really costing us anything, but it's actually adding to our value.
Any further discussion on the motion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Ballard.
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
Jaworski.
No.
Levon.
Yes.
Saloto.
Yes.
Dillman.
Yes.
Okay, commission reports. Councilman Jaworski.
The Planning Commission, along with City Council members of the school board and Superintendent Joe Specia, met on March 2nd here at City Hall for a workshop. The actual minutes of that will be approved at the next Planning Commission meeting, but for all intent and purpose, the bodies just went over the school's plans for that property and then gave their thoughts on it, and we also began to put together a plan to look at the report, and Planning Commission will be meeting to start going over the town center district zoning at their next upcoming meeting.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other commission reports? Seeing no old business, we went to new business A, storefront renovation guidelines.
Okay, so last year we had the guidelines and that's what I want to see. As soon as we're getting ready to go and we pass, or if we pass the budget, I want to get going with the storefronts, promoting it better than ever. So my main thing is, you guys want to stick around the same guidelines we had last year, parking lots. I know that was one topic. I know Councilman Thielman mentioned that, you know, on parking lots, they have to, you know, keep up on them already. But my thing is, you know, if they violate somebody on a parking lot, all they're doing is filling potholes. With this, they're actually replacing the whole parking lot, which really adds, I feel, to the aesthetics of the avenue. Seeing a lot of these buildings, the parking lots in the front. So that's one thing I want to know if you guys are good with sticking with that. And then are we good with sticking with just Euclid Avenue? The whole point that we did this was to improve the aesthetics on Euclid Avenue. And I know a couple took, one business took advantage of it that was on Lloyd Road. So, you know, my main focus is Euclid Avenue right now. So I wanted to see if you're good with that for just Euclid Avenue. I've spoken with Jeremy and believes, I mean, we could, do that. And then the last thing is, no, that is all. I just want to know, I don't want to put it back in the committee just because I'm ready to go with it and start promoting it. So,
Councilwoman Sloto?
I agree about the Euclid Avenue statement. I mean, if we're gonna, put aside funds to improve the aesthetic of Euclid Avenue, I think that's what we all had in mind with respect to sequestering those funds. But I think I agree that maybe focusing on Euclid Avenue alone would be a better use of the funds going forward.
and parking lots, you guys are,
Go ahead, Councilman Garrett.
I personally, in my opinion, I do not care if it's spent off the avenue or not. As a storefront renovation, we have businesses. We didn't use all the funds last year. I mean, there's certain, we put the money out there. If somebody else can use it, I do not have a problem outside of it, and I do not have a problem with not a parking lot repair. As what we were talking about last year, where Tom was talking about filling potholes, I agree with him on that, but if they're going to do a overlay, then I don't have a problem with that.
right, agreed. And the only reason on storefront is, that's why we kind of did this storefront, was for Euclid Avenue, you know what I'm saying? We were close, we were about 3,500 away. I know some are still waiting because they're waiting for their sign or funding, but I believe everything was spent but about 3,500. So we're close, but I get it if there's some left over when we're done, if we're coming towards that, and it's gonna be promoted a whole heck of a lot better this year as well, too. So hopefully it's utilized.
Councilwoman Sloto.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, it needs to be promoted better. I mean, we're certainly gonna promote it much better. And, I mean, I think, for instance, I'm just gonna use an example, okay? So talking about a parking lot, okay? Dr. Sabat did his parking lot, okay? It looks like a brand new building just because the parking lot was redone. And now Vittorio's also got some funding and they're putting up new signage and they're gonna do a whole front, with tables outside to make it look more of a villa. That's all coming, wrought iron, all that stuff. So that's gonna make a completely different look to that building that had really gotten run down over the years. So I think that's what we're trying to accomplish. And so I think that's where we have to focus and try to use that money that way.
Excellent, well, that's,
Councilman Thielman.
Yeah, I'm still not 100% in favor of parking lots. And I can't remember, is our program up to $10,000 per grant?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yes.
If you spend 10,000? I would like to see something that maybe parking lots have to be leveraged at a higher percentage, meaning if we're gonna put 10,000, then you gotta spend at least 20,000 or 30,000, not just a 10 for 10 on parking lots. That's an idea. Or if it is strictly just a parking lot redo, that's some type of aesthetic improvement, landscaping, decorative lighting, something has to be included that also, other than just parking lots.
Okay.
Because I think the spirit of the program is to make an aesthetic change. I don't know, I don't drive down Euclid Avenue and say, ooh, look at the parking lots. How wonderful they are. Well, some do, I don't. I'd love just to see.
I say oh God, look at that parking lot.
Yeah, I'd like.
It's a mess.
Yeah,
That's
I'd like
what
to
I
see new paint and siding and landscaping and things like that. I kind of think at the program, for $50,000, we probably could have planted flowers and everything all up and down the avenue. It would look beautiful. And you have money left over to
then the service
maintain them.
department.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I don't know. I just really want to stress aesthetics and less parking lot. Especially, say, like Town Center. I don't want that guy coming and saying, oh, I'm going to do $20,000 worth of repairs, give me $10,000. No, repave your whole parking lot and we'll give you
Right.
$10,000. So, a little higher leverage on parking lots.
Okay,
That's just an idea.
no, that's.
And I don't have a problem going off Euclid Avenue using the program, making it a citywide, for, business improvements.
Federated is another one, I just want to say, the parking lot made that building look a lot
Right,
better.
right.
All right, so just a couple things. Just my suggestion would be, if we'd focus on Euclid Avenue and maybe have a deadline by a specific date, but leave it open if we have extra money for other business offsite.
Yeah.
But the second thing is, do you want to just present, like, whenever you're ready, we'll put this in committee, and when you're ready to present the whole thing, we'll take a look at it and then give our A-OK on it? Or do you just want to go with the suggestions you have and then you're ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I'm fine if we put it, I'm sorry.
No, you can go ahead, Councilman Thielman.
Yeah, I'm fine. We put 50,000 in the budget. It's $50,000 for storefront renovation. How admin wants to spend it for a storefront renovation program, it's really up to them. I don't want to micromanage the program, but I gave my 2 cents.
And the guidelines are pretty strict too, from last year. I mean, that you guys.
Any other further discussion on this topic? Okay, move on to new business B, vacant building business violations.
Okay, Councilman Harstein, you mentioned something earlier that really strikes home with me as I drive down this avenue and I look at these vacant buildings and I talk with Ray about, who's about. But one thing that I feel maybe just misled on some things is, so I don't want to single out a business, but there is a couple buildings, all right, that have maybe 2, 3, or 4 storefronts that have one filled, the rest are empty, and they got separate addresses. So I was wondering, could we do something like a vacant business ordinance where, something like that? And my other thing is, when we go down, so next to Orlando Funeral Home, on that side of the street, we have those 2, it's like retail, used to be a bridal store, and then there's apartments above it, right? There's the tan one and the red or brick one. So the apartments are filled, but the storefront's empty. So they and so the point is to have also the payroll tax, we're not getting that, but they have those apartments, so that's the
Exempt
thing.
right now, yeah.
Right. Now, one's a business, one's an apartment, so that's what I mean, vacant businesses or something. Now, I bring it to you, I've mentioned something to Jeremy, he'd have to do some research if we could do that, but is that something you guys want to think about? Because there are a lot of buildings that have one open, something's in there, and then 2, 3, or 4 empty, that I feel we should get, by doing something like that, we might be, hey, guys, lower the rent or whatever, so we could start getting some of these filled.
So you mean storefronts?
The storefronts, right.
So instead of vacant buildings, it would be vacant storefronts in addition.
Right, and I know.
Each storefront would count as a different.
Councilman Garrett, second.
I am opposed to any building owner that is working on filling his business and he has spots that are vacant that he can't fill. I think it's not the spirit of what the vacant building fee was for. The vacant building fee was for people who leave their buildings abandoned and they are more of an eyesore on Euclid Avenue than they are certain business owners that are filling them. Just because they can't fill a spot, I don't think we have to penalize those particular owners for a vacant storefront.
Well, I'm not looking to penalize, but like that one where I say in the apartments and then they're not gonna fill, so those stores are gonna just stay empty. And here's another thing, the Cuts and Suds building. So there was a storefront next to it, it was a sports memorabilia place. So that guy, the owner of the building, turned that into an apartment. So we just cut payroll dollars. Not that it was holding a lot, but that's in town center, so that's allowed to happen. So these are the things that are just going through my mind on how, I don't want to penalize anybody, but if we could figure out a way how to get these or help them, but there's just a lot of it. I see it, especially on the west end, that you got one thing and then you got empty.
Okay, Councilman Garrett, second.
I honestly believe that we need to enforce the building code violations that are on the avenue to start. I mean, as Tom said when Tom ran, it was time to hurt people's feelings again. Tom, remember when you said that during your campaign? That is a very honest statement on what goes on the avenue. But I just think that I don't know how many people own buildings down there, but it is difficult to bring business in here. So the people who are trying to levy any type of fee on them, I will not support that. I don't think it's fair for the people that own buildings down there that, just because they can't fill one or half of one, that they should be penalized.
Yeah, and then the vacant building one, it is being enforced. I looked at everyone on the list. I've asked why certain ones weren't, and there's good, like spec block. Here's
when
something.
I'm talking about vacant buildings, I'm talking about just the
No.
violations.
But you said on enforce what you.
Well, no, building violations. I'm not talking about vacant building codes. Ray and I have had the conversation. I'm talking
Okay,
about
just
building
regular building violations.
that are not being taken care of.
Yes, no, absolutely, I agree on that.
Councilwoman Sloto.
I don't want to belabor this and disagree with you, but I'm going to just for one more second. So, I mean, there is no real incentive for a lot of the buildings on Euclid Avenue that have residents behind them. So they rent out these residences, but they're not trying to rent the storefronts at this point. They're just leaving them. And that is what the vacant building thing, in my mind, was originally supposed to do, is sort of incentivize them to, you know, fill those slots and keep that building up. I think the way we have it written, you know, they're just, if anything is in that building, it's not considered a vacant building, and that's fine. But that doesn't fix our issue, and the issue is all of these empty things, and they look terrible, and there is no incentive, zero incentive for a lot of these building owners to fill those storefronts, and to like, maybe upgrade the building enough so that someone would wanna go in there and open up a business, because a lot of these are not rentable. I mean, who would go into some of these buildings and try to put a business in? Because they're just not kept up. So, I mean, there are plenty of cities that enforce that sort of thing, or that at least incentivize the owner to do something with their storefront.
And what if, okay, so we leave the ones where there's like a building with businesses and there's one there, three not there, okay, we leave them all. But what about residential and commercial? So, okay, we got the residential taken care of, but the commercial's empty. Is that, again, you don't think?
Well, maybe it should be put into committee and we can discuss.
Yeah, you know, let's.
For sure, I think we also talked about, he asked Jeremy for his opinion, he had to look this up and so like that. So once the law director has a time to review this, maybe we put a committee in, and when he has his
Yeah, I just want to put our heads
recommendation.
together, see
Sure.
what we can do anyway.
Yeah, and what I'll do is let you know if you can do it, and then you
Correct.
guys can decide
That
whether
way-
you should do it.
But this is how we work together to figure things out, so
All right,
yeah,
so
absolutely.
we'll put vacant building business violations into legislation and welfare committee. New business C, burying of all utility lines in all new developments. Councilman Jaworski.
Thank you, Council President. I believe I mentioned this during the Planning Commission workshop on March 2nd, but I would ask that we put this item into committee. I think it's something that we'll be having one development in the city where the two schools are going to be. I think from a look standpoint, no matter what goes in there, if we make sure that all those lines are buried under there, it's going to at least make it look a lot better than it is if we have those hideous poles with all those thick lines running down the street.
Any further discussion on this, or put in the committee? Okay, put in burying of all utility lines in all new developments into the committee of the whole. New business D, sidewalk extensions for Rockefeller. Councilman Bala.
You like to get this in committee, but this new school coming up, I've heard some complaints about, you know, from Meadowbrook down to the school, there's really no sidewalks. So they have to walk in the streets, it's kind of dangerous, so I'd like to see this maybe put in the improvement committee and look at it.
Okay, we will put sidewalk extensions into the improvement committee. Mayor.
Is there some sidewalk there? Like, is there some? Because I received an email that they want the sidewalk finished over by there. I haven't.
It just stops. It
And
stops.
so that's what you wanted, just to continue, right?
At least the Meadowbrook down, because it stops and
On
then.
that side of the street, there's nothing.
Where's it stop?
Then the other side of the street, there's sidewalks from like, Beechwood, then down then.
It stops at Meadowbrook, and so that whole section between Meadowbrook all the way down to the high school.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good to know.
Any further discussion on this topic? If not, we'll put it into the improvement committee. Concludes new business, move into ordinances.
All right. And forgive me, I've been losing my voice the last couple of days, so if I go silent, just forgive me. First ordinance number 2023-07 amended by title only, and this is the third reading. Suspension failed twice, so it is the third reading. An ordinance providing for the compensation and other employment provisions for part-time firefighters of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio, repealing any and all other ordinances or parts thereof that may be inconsistent with this ordinance and declaring an emergency.
Suspension?
You don't have to just adopt it.
Oh, sorry, adoption.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Bala, seconded by Councilman Thielman to adopt ordinance 2023-07 amended as presented. Discussion? I would just say, I think this amended ordinance is a waste of time and energy. The first one should have been read 3 times. The administration rushed it through for emergency reading. Then a councilman said that there might be an issue with it, and the administration didn't make a recommendation to put it on first reading or anything. They just sat on their hands, so we passed the ordinance as they expected. I think amending it is a waste of time, in my opinion. Discussion? Any further discussion on it? Sandy, please call the roll.
Ballard,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
No.
Jaworski.
No.
Levon,
No.
Saloto,
No.
Thielman.
Yes.
Ordinance fails. Go ahead.
Ordinance number 2023-08, an ordinance providing appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio for a period beginning January 1st, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2023. This is the third reading.
Adoption.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gerhardstein, seconded by Councilman Thielman to adopt ordinance 2023-08 as presented. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Ballard,
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
Jaworski.
No.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto,
Yes.
Thielman.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2023-09, this is the third reading by title only, an ordinance providing for the compensation of appointed officials of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio, and repealing any and all other ordinances or parts thereof that may be inconsistent with this ordinance.
Adoption.
Second?
Moved by Councilman Thielman, seconded by Councilman Bala to adopt ordinance 2023-09 as presented. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Ballard,
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
Jaworski.
No.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto,
Yes.
Thielman.
Yes.
Passes.
Ordinance number 2023-10. This is also the third reading by title only, an ordinance providing for the compensation of certain salaried and hourly employees of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio, and repealing any and all other ordinances or parts thereof that may be inconsistent with this ordinance.
Adoption?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Bala, seconded by Councilwoman Saloto to adopt ordinance 2023-10 as presented. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Ballard,
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto,
Yes.
Thielman.
Yes.
Passes.
Ordinance number 2023-11, third reading as well, by title only, an ordinance providing for the compensation of certain employees of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio, and repealing any and all other ordinances or parts thereof that may be inconsistent with this ordinance.
Adoption.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gerhardstein, seconded by Councilwoman Saloto to adopt ordinance 2023-11 as presented. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Ballard,
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Levon.
Yes.
Saloto.
Yes.
Thielman.
Yes.
Passes.
Ordinance number 2023-12, also the third reading by title only, an ordinance providing for the compensation and other employment provisions for the part-time public safety dispatchers of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio, and repealing any and all other ordinances or parts thereof that may be inconsistent with this ordinance.
Adoption.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gerhardstein, seconded by Councilman Thielman to adopt ordinance 2023-12 as presented. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Ballard,
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto.
Yes.
Thielman.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2023-13, also the third reading by title only, an ordinance providing for the compensation and other employment provision for special police officers of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio, and repealing any and all other ordinances or parts thereof that may be inconsistent with this ordinance.
Adoption?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Bella, second by Councilwoman Sloto to adopt ordinance 2023-13 as presented. Discussion?
Yes.
Councilman Gerstein.
I'd like to make a comment. Seeing how that I asked a question about this particular ordinance, and it seems like it's been taken out of context. I have never questioned the pay of a part-time police officer. I question how it's brought up. If we're not paying these gentlemen enough money, I do not have a problem if their pay was just stated. I've always supported the fact that but it seems that because I've asked a question about this, about CPR training and firearms training, if these gentlemen, so they get bonuses in lieu of pay, I don't have a problem with the gentleman getting paid. It's the way the ordinance is written, where it looks like we're giving bonuses. If they're not paid enough, then increase their pay on their hourly rate instead of insinuating their bonuses for firearms. That was my question. It's been taken out of context that I'm somehow not supporting the part-time police officers. That is not the case. I understand they do not make enough, but their pay generated on bonuses should just be put in their hourly rate. That was the question.
Would you like an explanation?
Chief Vice.
Go ahead, sir.
So when we started the special program, I believe Chief Fox was here, maybe even Dion. It's going back 25, 30 years. We came up with this program. You know, the state requires that all policemen have to pass a firearm proficiency test. All policemen, if you have access to the jail, have to be certified in first aid and CPR. All of our specials are required to do that. The clothing allowance. They have to wear uniforms. I know, for example, Joe and Lenny but they do wear uniforms. Actually, they wear 511 pants. If you look at our dispatchers used to wear a uniform like I have on. Now they wear a soft uniform, which is 511 pants and shirt. Those things are actually more expensive. A pair of 511 pants are $90. So those guys, the non-uniform part-timers do wear a uniform, but it's a soft uniform. Wait, let me finish, sir. So what we did back then when we started this, we said, hey, look, let's treat these people fairly because they have to do these same things that the full-timers do. But instead of paying them the full rate, it's prorated by how much they work. For example, if they work 50% of the year, then they get half of that money for those bonuses. That's where it came from. And just for your own edification, how though the full-timers got that in their contract is during the contract negotiations, we're at an impasse. And I negotiated some of those when I was on the other side of the fence. And they'd say, okay, well, how can we get this through? How can we get this through for the full-timers? I tell you what, why don't you give us a shooting pit bonus? It started out like at $200, and then I was at $500. CPR started out at $100, and now I think it's $400. Those individual increases were gotten as a part of a negotiated deal. So with that thought in mind, we wanted to treat the part-timers the same way we treat the full-timers because they do the same job.
So my question when it started a couple weeks ago, my question was only for, it doesn't matter the names, it was for the retiree-hires, not the two that work, that are part-time, all the time in uniform. The question was, why are part-time employees getting the union benefits part of the CPR, the firearms, and the stuff like that? It was explained to me it was in lieu of raises. I understand that. And I understand that the fact that, you just said it, was the bonuses started out as negotiations in lieu of raises. That's exactly. So the question started out a couple weeks ago, Chief, and I'm saying this is taken out of context. Somehow I'm anti-part-time police. That's not the case here. It was a simple question why we're giving part-time employees union benefits out of their contract, right? So I'm just saying if we're not paying them enough, I would just assume that part-time guys that are part-time rehired would just raise their hourly rate and get rid of the CPR and the firearm bonuses, just so it looks like we're not giving rehired police officers the same union benefits as the full-time officers. That was how the question started. That's all. Everybody took it personal.
I didn't take anything personal.
Okay.
I mean, I had a conversation with Councilman
Just want to
Levon.
make sure it's clear to the air that I was not going after the part-time police officers.
Chief, we did have that conversation. I think that Councilman Garrison just wants to make a public notice that he's not opposed to paying them what they're worth. That's all. But our conversation made a lot of sense, and I understood what you said from that conversation, and I appreciated that conversation. Okay. Any further discussion on the adoption of the motion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Ballard,
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Levon.
Yes.
Solot.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance number 2023-15, by title only, an ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 935 sewer regulations and rates of the codified ordinances of the City of Wickliffe, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gerhardstein, seconded by Councilman Thielman to suspend the rule of council and place ordinance 2023-15 on third and final reading. Discussion? Councilman Jaworski?
I just harken back to what I said during the committee meeting. I just would like to see it phased in and not just all at once.
Any further discussion on the suspension? Sandy, please call the roll.
Ballard,
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
Jaworski.
No.
Levon.
Yes.
Solot.
No.
Thielman.
Yes.
Adoption.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gerhardstein, seconded by Councilman Bella to adopt ordinance 2023-15 as presented. Pardon me, you have a question?
Did the emergency?
Emergency passes, we have 67%, 4-2. So yes, it does pass. Needs 2/3 votes. Sorry, that was moved by Councilman Gerhardstein, seconded by Councilman Bella to adopt ordinance 2023-15 as presented. Discussion? Cindy, please call the roll.
Ballard,
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
Jaworski.
No.
Levon.
Yes.
Solot.
Yes.
Thielman.
Yes.
Seeing no resolutions, is there any other legislation? Even though the agenda has us backwards, I'm going to say miscellaneous. If not, I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session.
Make a motion to move into executive session.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gerhardstein, second by Councilman Thielman, to move into executive session to discuss negotiations, pending court action, and employment and/or termination of a public employee. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Ballard.
Yes.
Gerhardstein.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Levon.
Yes.
Solot.
Yes.
Thielman.
Yes.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
It's the 11th
So I'm going to do the...